So what do we have here? Well, this is a Weatherby 307 rifle, chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, specifically their Range XP model. Now, I was looking to do some upgrades to the factory rifle system, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to bring you guys along and show you some things that you could do to your own 307 or other Remington 700 pattern factory rifles that you may have. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot this in its factory condition. Then we're going to do some Hawkins upgrades. We're going to shoot it again and see if we've improved the shootability and accuracy of this rifle system. Now, we could have called this a factory upgrade rifle project, but even though this is a rifle that you could go to your local Shills and purchase, these rifles are kind of a custom option due to the way the Weatherby 307 action is designed. Now, the 307 is a Remington 700 pattern clone action, which means there's a ton of aftermarket stocks and accessories that you can purchase for it. You can even go to Weatherby and purchase a 307 builder action if you want to start from scratch. All this means is we're able to put some Hawkins precision goodness on this rifle. We're going to stick it in a Peak 44 stock and see how it does. Truth be told, we've shot this rifle before in the factory configuration, and it's put down some really nice groups. So right out of the box, the 307 Range XP comes with a polymer composite stock with an adjustable comb, and the stock does have pillars in it, which is a nice touch. So the rifle comes standard with a polymer composite bottom metal. It also has swivel studs for attaching your bipod or your sling. And one thing I really like is the barrel is threaded half 28 for attaching muzzle brakes or suppressors. One constant on this build is going to be our optic. We're running a Telson optics 2.5 to 15 by 44 arc scope. Now, I put it in a set of 30mm high featherweight scope rings. So the 307 has 860 hole spacing front and back, and it has a round receiver. So we're running the Stiller Lone Peak variation of the featherweights. So with the Telson scope and the featherweight scope rings, that's going to allow us to keep the weight down on the rifle. Right now, it weighs in at 9 pounds, 11 ounces with the Harris 6-9 bipod. So that's the rifle as it sits now. Let's take it to the range and see how it shoots. So we'll start off on paper at 100 yards. We're going to shoot 4 5-shot groups. That's going to give us a 20-shot aggregate of the accuracy of the rifle. So the first group out of the rifle in its factory condition was a good one. We put 4 shots into a 7/10 group, but that 5th one was just a bit outside, giving us a 1-inch group. We're also doing these 5-shot 4-group aggregates to give you guys a clear picture of overall rifle accuracy. For the second group in the factory configuration, I did move the point of impact down 0.2 of a mil to get centered up for my 0, and that group was right at 1.2 inches overall. So as you can see, the rifle is grouping really well so far, just straight out of the box. Now the third group is kind of where the wheels fall off here. I shot a 2-inch group, and really that's on me. I did not let the barrel cool nearly enough as I should, and it was way too hot to get accurate group shooting. That's my fault. I'm really used to shooting heavy barrel contours on my PRS rifles, and this one just needed to cool down a little bit. So for our fourth group, I had one round that was just a bit outside, giving us a 1.3-inch group and a 1.375-inch aggregate. I'd say if I would have shot with a cooler barrel last time, this is easily a 1-minute rifle all day long if you do your part. Now we're shooting off a tank trap, and this is just throwing the rifle in forward off and rolling. You can see I was high left and then adjusted. So we went 50% on the diamond, we went 2 for 2 on the coyote, and that I did miss the truing bar high, then low, but I had a pretty hot barrel at this point. However, I was still able to hit the small plate with my first shot and just miss it on my second. 4 out of 8 total impacts. Now for the true test of a rifle, 1,000 yards. It was getting pretty late in the day and it was hard to see all the low right hits. All in all, 1 hit out of 10, and we were kind of digging a hole in the dirt on that low right side, and that's on me for not correcting properly. Now let's get some rifle upgrades going and see how this rifle system shoots. Now, as you can see, our Model 307 has gotten a couple of upgrades. First one that's easy to spot is this Peak 44 Blacktooth stock. Now, the great thing about Peak 44 stocks, they're super sturdy, carbon fiber, but they're extremely lightweight. Just putting the barreled action in this stock shaved 1 pound off the rifle build. So we're coming in at 8 pounds, 12 ounces with the Thunder Beast bipod. That's pretty hard to beat. Additionally, we've had the stock fully bedded to the barreled action by Harless Precision, and they're based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And one thing I did forget to mention, the rifle does come with a TriggerTech build trigger. We did not change that from the original configuration, and that is what is in this rifle right now. Now, this stock has an M5 inlet pattern, which means we can run our M5 Obendorf BDL in this rifle if we want to hinge floor plate. We could run our M5 DBM if we're going to use this more as a range rifle and maybe use more 5 or 10 round magazines. And we can use our M5 Hunter DBM, which is what we're using in this build. So if we have a Hunter DBM in here, we're going to pair it with a Hawkins Hunter flush magazine. This one is obviously for 6.5 Creedmoor 308 base cases. It holds 4 rounds and is almost flush to the bottom of the stock. But one nice thing about the Hunter DBM is we can use AI pattern mags when we're at the range, or if we want to drop a 5-round magazine in there, if maybe we spot a coyote while we're out deer hunting. We also had our 4.5-inch bipod Picatinny rail installed to the stock. That just allows me to use some of the bipods that I use in competition shooting. I have the Thunder Beast bipod here with the really right stuff head that will allow for ARCA and Picatinny rail mounting. Keeps it super handy, and that 4.5-inch length does give you a little bit of option to set the bipod a little bit farther forward or a little bit farther back, depending on your shooting conditions. And the last thing we did is we swapped out the radial brake that comes on the 307, and we put one of our Tank ST muzzle brakes on here. Now, this is the 750 outside diameter half 28 configuration, and this is a 4 straight port design. This is really great for hunting. The concussion is minimal, but the recoil reduction does a really good job settling the rifle after you take a shot. And that's all the upgrades we've done to the 307. We've added bottom metal with flush magazines. We've added a lighter stock, bipod Picatinny rail, nice Thunder Beast bipod, new muzzle brake. That's all well and good, but does it shoot better? Let's go to the range and find out. Now, the first shots out of the upgraded rifle were doing well. We had run round that was just outside the main group, but still managed a 1.1-inch group at 100 yards. Now, the next group was right at that same 1.1-inch grouping with some horizontal stringing. Maybe that's me on the trigger with a little bit heavier pull weight trigger. Group 3 started off strong, and we ended with just under a 1-inch group, improving our aggregate. Our fourth group was a killer, measuring at 0.7 of an inch, giving us just under a 1-inch aggregate for a 20-shot group. Now it's time for the tank trap. Once again, we're shooting these targets at 550 yards, and some of these targets are pretty sporty, even with my PRS rifle. But as you can see here with this lightweight rifle, we start 1 for 2 on the big diamond. Then when I move over to the coyote, it's more of the same with 1 for 2. On the truing bar, went 50%. And then on the final shot on the small square, I edged hit it, which gave us 4 out of 8, 4 total impacts. Like I said, not bad for 550 yards with a super lightweight rifle. So now we're at 1,000 yards, and we had some better conditions this day for shooting, and it really showed. Overall, we go 5 for 10 on the 1,000-yard IPSC, but we're still trending a little bit low on the ballistic solver. So if we trued that up a little bit better, we'd be getting some more hits. But overall, I'd say that these rifle upgrades are showing a lot of potential in this Weatherby 307. So just some closing thoughts on our Weatherby 307 rifle build. First of all, big thanks to Weatherby for allowing us to borrow this rifle for the upgrade project, and big thanks to Peak 44 Stocks for the use of their Blacktooth rifle stock. I'd also like to say thanks to Shane Harless at Harless Precision for bedding this barreled action into this rifle stock. He's local to us at Colorado Springs and does some really good work. Thanks to Telson Optics. Their 2.5 to 15 by 44 arc scope was really nice to use, really easy to re-zero, locking turrets, super lightweight, easy to make hits at 1,000 yards. This is a really solid option from a new scope manufacturer. Can't forget our friends at Thunder Beast Arms in Wyoming. We feature their bipod in a lot of our videos. It's one we trust. It's a really great bipod system. But what does upgrading a rifle get you? Well, I feel in this case, it did help the shooting of the rifle. It helped it be a little bit more consistent. Now, the rifle shot great in its factory configuration. You know, we hit that tiny plate at 550 off the tank trap, and that's no joke even for a heavy PRS rifle. It shot really good groups at 100 yards. We shot sub 1 minute groups in both configurations. But some things that help with the consistency. You know, it helped with consistency in feeding. You may have noticed that I was punching up the bottom of the magazine in the factory configuration, and that's just because we had 2 magazines that fit in the bottom metal well, and we got 2 magazines that didn't. And that's really no fault of the bottom metal or the magazines. We generally find that magazines have the most tolerance variation of any item in your rifle system. So sometimes that's part of the process of building a custom rifle, is finding magazines that'll work with it. 2 of those magazines didn't fit in the factory bottom metal. I had 2 10-round ASCS magazines that snapped right in. But obviously, you know, if you switch to our Hunter bottom metal and the Hunter magazines, they're made here in the USA in the same facility. They're gonna mate up and work really well. And I think you'd find that really with any bottom metal or magazine combo, not just to talk about ours. And so that helped consistency in the feeding. And you saw we had really good consistent hits at 1,000 yards in this configuration. So it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're kind of taking one of these factory rifles in the Remington 700 footprint, you know, sticking it in a new stock and bedding it is never gonna hurt anything. You know, we were able to use this Thunder Beast bipod that was a little bit more stable, locked into our bipod Picatinny mount. So it made the shooting a little bit more stable. So there's little things that you can do to incrementally improve your rifle over time that I think help improve the overall shooting experience. But let us know down in the comments what kind of upgrades you've done to your factory rifles, and let us know what you think about this build. Thanks for watching.